Thanks for coming on, bro. It's been I've since I started following your page, I'm like, dude, this guy's super cool. All the stuff he's doing with his podcast, with his brand. I'm like, I gotta see if I can get him on. And so with that, man, I really appreciate you spending the time to come in here and talk about your thing.
Yeah, of course. I'm an open book, so happy to dive into whatever you want. And how long is your show typically?
As long as the guests will allow. I try to extract as much as I can, and also adding as much value as possible. The other day I filmed one on the Power of Intention by Wayne Dyer, and just by myself, and that was 30 minutes. And then I've got another call with someone else. It's an hour and a half. So the audience loves both, and especially when there's two people conversing back and forth, and with book authors and people such as yourself that are really into the world of books, it works both ways for sure.
Okay,
So,
cool. Yeah, I would say I've got about an hour,
okay,
and
no big deal.
hopefully nothing bad happens on my end because I'm down in Panama and my Wi-Fi is kind of inconsistent, but who knows? Sometimes it works for days at a time and sometimes it crashes, so we'll
Yeah,
cross our fingers.
cool. You down there just hanging out on vacation, or?
I actually live as a digital nomad for about half of the year. So my girlfriend and I are down here for a month, just avoiding the cold weather in Boston.
Oh, love it, love it. Wish I could do the same.
You
Can't.
can.
Well, I could, but I have a pool company, so I can't just leave. Uh,
Yeah, I've been paying attention to that. I like your stories. I think they're fun updates. And then the other day you're like, I don't even know why I post this stuff. And then you're like, I'm gonna quit Instagram.
no, I appreciate it, man. But hey, let's start from the beginning. So, how did you get into the whole book thinkers world, and what's kind of like your story leading up to the brand?
Sure. So I was not much of a reader growing up. When I was in high school and college, I had more of the traditional jock stereotype. I wasn't into anything related to academics or intelligence. And I played football in high school. I was also a wrestler. And then when I went to college, I did run my own house painting business actually when I was in college for a couple of years. And I really maxed out my potential within that business after 2 summers. So I took an internship with a software company my senior year at college. And very quickly, I jumped into the world of software sales. And one of my early sales mentors at the time, I had gone on a couple of trips with him and he had put on some business podcasts and I thought they were fascinating. And I started to listen to podcasts myself, and all of these business related podcasts, the guests seemed to recommend a lot of books. And I was not a reader at all. I'd never read a book, in high school or college. But all of these people had done what I had wanted to do, which is become really successful and financially independent. And they could speak with a level of financial literacy that I could only dream of at the time. And so I decided to read a couple of books. And my internship that summer going into my senior year was not very time intensive. And so I was supposed to be there for 8 hours a day, but I finished my work in like 2 hours. And so I went over to Barnes and Noble one day and I just sort of went through the best-selling business books at the time, and I grabbed some of the ones that I'd heard about on the podcasts, and I went back and I started reading. And that whole summer I read and I read and I read, and it transformed my life. And so a lot of those early books were personal finance and investing related books, some habit related books. And I just thought, geez, if these books can transform somebody like me who was a non-reader into somebody who identifies first when they meet people as a reader, what other areas of my life can I apply this magic to? And so that's sort of the short way or the short version of how it happened.
Yeah, yeah. So what was the Instagram page for Book Thinkers first, or was it your podcast? Which one?
The Instagram came before the podcast, but before the Instagram, there was a business idea. And the idea happened because that senior year at college, I had started to read some more books, and I had read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And so did one of my friends. And we both had run these house painting businesses. So we got a little taste of entrepreneurship and we wanted to know what was next. I mean, we wanted to do something out of college. And so we would meet once a week because of the book in a mastermind setting. And we would talk about different potential entrepreneurship endeavors that we could go on together. And one of them was in this world of nonfiction books, because I was reading so many books, but I was having a hard time retaining and implementing the information from them. So we thought we'd build a mobile application. And that's how Book Thinkers started. We thought we'd build a mobile app where you could organize your book notes and then set systematic reminders so that you could extend your interaction with the book for years, not just weeks. And that failed miserably, but the Instagram is what came as a result of that, because we thought, okay, we need to have an audience to sell this app to. Let's start sharing the books that we're reading on social media. So the app totally flopped, but Instagram sort of had legs, and that came before the podcast.
Okay, right on. So how long have you had the Instagram page?
Probably about 5 years. And I would say, maybe 4 years of relatively consistent execution.
Is that when you've seen most of your growth, is in the last year or two, or are you kind of just steady climb all the way up?
It was right in the middle. So going from 0 to 1,000 followers was very difficult. And then I think the hardest was probably 1,000 to 10,000. Once it hit 10,000, Bookstagram started to become more of a thing. I mean, it really wasn't a thing back then. And I'm thinking that was 2019, beginning of 2019. Bookstagram started to take off, and so did the page. And so 50K happened before the end of the year. And then, in 2021, I think, put us over 100. And it slowed down pretty significantly within the last 6 months.
Yeah.
But I mean, slow at first, fast in the middle, slow again.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure a lot of that has to do with like Facebook and Instagram's algorithms, because they're all over the place.
Yeah, they are.
I mean, they're just
sad.
I know, because I've seen a lot of guys get, a lot of entrepreneurs got a ton of traction, a ton of story viewers, and then I know, especially with all the political stuff, like if they see anything at all, like it just kills it, and then it's kind of just hit or miss, really. And that's been difficult for sure.
Yeah, I thought I had a great grip on it for a long time, and social media is a tough business to be in. I mean, for anybody listening today, I would seriously think twice about it. I mean, if I had known how much flexibility I would have to endure, I mean, social media it changes all the time. I mean, when I was first starting on Instagram, it was faceless picture content, just pictures of the books I was reading. And then it was like, well, if you want to build a brand faster, you need to get behind the camera a little bit more. So I started creating longer form video content, IGTV. And then it was like, oh, IGTV is not great anymore. Back to pictures and maybe like up to 1 minute videos. And now it's like, if your video is longer than 15 seconds, you're old. And I'm over here like, how can I do video reviews for books in less than a minute, or less than 30 seconds, or less than 15 seconds? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's the attention span of society has dropped dramatically for sure.
Yeah, TikTok is to blame, right? Or whatever, Vine, whatever came before it. But I was talking about that today with some of my friends. I was like, at the rate that our attention span is declining, people aren't going to be able to sit around for 15-second videos in the future. And I even find myself doing it. If I'm on Instagram Reels and I'm scrolling through and I don't even give videos more than a second before I know whether or not I want to watch it, it's like, I don't even like watching educational content on Instagram. Nobody does. We like entertaining content. So yeah, it's tough if you're in the educational space.
Yeah, I've seen that a lot. But I think there's a fine line with that, because you got guys like that are doing it huge, like Joe Rogan. He's got 3-hour podcasts that people are watching religiously. And so I think, I obviously don't know the formula for that, but there's got to be something that, that something that you can grab your audience with, that, okay, I'm going to go back to him and watch his 5, 10, 15-minute videos because it resonates with me so well. And it's such a powerful piece, I mean, Have you thought about that, that aspect of it instead of just doing short everything?
Yeah, definitely. And Book Thinkers has a wide variety of content. I think, um, like any value ladder, the people that are willing to stick around for the 15-second videos, a certain portion of them want the full length book review, and a certain portion of those people want the full length podcast, which is kind of why we cover all of it. And I love Joe Rogan's content. I'm one of those people that will sit down and watch a 3-hour podcast of his while I'm getting work done. And for a long time, I mean, really for the last 6 months, I've really been into his content. And what's unique about him is that it's unfiltered, it's raw, it's honest, it is long form. So you really get to know somebody. And from Joe's perspective, because he's talked about it recently, he said it's impossible in like a news setting, like a 15-minute news segment, to get deep enough into a subject to really explore it. Sometimes you need to go an hour and a half on just one subject. And I like that. So I could see myself getting into that in the future when I have the means or the credibility to do in-person content like that, like have somebody fly in and chat for 3 hours.
Yeah, dude, that would be sweet. I would love to do that because especially personally, I interact with people so much more, with sales, and that's kind of like I excel in that area. Just getting along with people, really, I would say. I mean, that's my perspective, but the in-person thing with just chatting about things, going over things, is super fun. And I mean, I thought about doing just a couple minutes on my podcast, but I'm like, I really have to, find people who will want to listen to it, and then just go with it, man. And then that's it, is what it is, right?
Yeah, the conversational stuff is, I think, in the long run, the best bet, because as we continue to get more superficial and people will identify with less and less people, like there's no room to follow 20 people religiously anymore. And so I love Joe Rogan, and I think that content style is something that I'd love to play with, like you said.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one thing I was going to say is that with social media now the way it is, and people putting on a facade, though, and making your life look so much more glamorous than it is, it's refreshing for them to go to Joe Rogan's podcast and see all of the interruptions, all of just like someone has to go to the bathroom, drink of water, looking it up on TV or whatever, like all those things, and people are like, it's just real. And that's kind of like the age we're in, because it's for a long time it's been show, and now it's just what's the authentic person. You got guys like Jordan Peterson, Elon Musk. What are these guys like? 3 hours, 4 hours sitting down having just regular conversations. You only see bits and pieces. And so yeah, that's for sure one of his biggest reasons for success.
That's a good point. I actually haven't thought about it like that before. And I know that when he did his episode with Kanye last year, it was like the only time Kanye's ever sat down for a few hours at a time and talked with somebody. And when you think about Elon, you might get a 15-minute clip max from some other conference that he's keynoting at or something. But you're right. Like JRE is the only place that you're ever going to get those people for hours on end, which is really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I can't sit there, and I would love to sit there and talk to someone, for 3 hours, like you had Dan Bilzerian on. I mean, he's another guy who is one of those elite guys who you don't see a whole lot of, quality, just really hardcore quality time with, but very few places. And it's, and I think a lot of it too is his status. I mean, not only being a big podcaster, but when he started being in the UFC, he has that kind of credibility of life, which brings people in, and a lot to talk about. Being an interesting person, is a big part of it too, so it would be super fun though. I won't lie.
Yeah, my girlfriend and I are pretty serious about buying a house later this year. And one of my dreams would be to completely outfit like a studio where, I mean, it's a pretty accessible place, Florida. A lot of big names either funnel through or would be willing to fly in. And yeah, you just like Joe catches a lot of people when they're in town, and I would love to do the same thing. Like, hey, XYZ guest, next time you're in Miami, just shoot me a message and I'd love to have you over for an afternoon and we could shoot a show, that type of thing.
Yeah. Hey, if you ever need a co-host, man, I'll make something happen. It would be
Where
super.
are you?
I'm in Indiana, just out in the backwoods of nowhere, man.
My one of my cousins, I was just the best man at his wedding. He grew up in Indiana and went to Purdue, and all of his boys that were at the wedding went to Purdue. So it was funny. And I was at a coffee shop yesterday with my girlfriend here, and we both turned around at the same time because we heard somebody talking and it sounded exactly like him. And I was like, wow, that sounded like Conan. She said, oh, I thought the same thing. And then literally 30 seconds later, he was talking about Indiana. And I was like, that accent just, I guess it just sticks out a little bit.
So I've been told that, like, I lived in Minnesota for a year training police and military dogs. It's actually 2 years, and people there are like, "Are you from Kentucky?" And I'm right over the border. I'm in far south, right by Louisville. And I'm like, I mean, kind of. I'm on the Indiana side. That's what I thought. I'm like, I talk normal, man. Don't do me like that.
Yeah, well, when you're from Boston like me, and I don't have a hardcore Boston accent, but I know a number of people that do, and that sticks out like a sore thumb too.
Uh, for sure, for sure. Just getting a small glimpse of just your background. That's kind of your story with books is exactly with me. Like I was on my way. I was working with my dad doing remodeling and just small level construction stuff. Nothing big. And I had this vision of my life being this $30,000 a year, living in the middle of nowhere, working for my dad, and like, what's my life gonna be? And this internship to work with this dog trainer, mainly German Shepherds. He's in the working dog community, top 5 in the world. Lives in Minnesota, and a friend of ours, bred his dogs with his studs. And so he was like, you should try and train dogs with him. And I'm like, yeah, I could train dogs, better than what I'm doing now, dude. I'm getting tired of laying tile and working in moldy houses. So that whole going up there, that process really got to where got me in this position and made me, just more contemplation. And in the process of that, Ty Lopez running some ads on YouTube about, you want things in your life, the wealth, the success comes through knowledge. And like you, I hated reading books, or at least I hated it for sure. I never read. My dad always told me readers are leaders, but he never really explained like the concept. Like if you want pretty much anything in your life, like knowledge, and books is knowledge, is the source, whatever it is, mentorship, masterminds, books, whatever. So it didn't really click until I got that ad. And from then, that was like 2017, up till now, I've been reading books in the last like year, 2 years consistently. And dude, that's just driven my whole success, is learning, constantly improving. And so, I really relate to that part of your story, and I can really appreciate that because, that's been huge for me as well.
Yeah, my story is somewhat intertwined with Ty Lopez as well, because I watched one of those here in my garage ads, ended up getting into a funnel, watching an early TED Talk that he did. And I was fascinated with a few things that he said in that TED Talk that I still remember today. One of them was he said to the audience, if I told you that tonight I had Arnold Schwarzenegger over for dinner talking about lifting weights, and he went down the name of a bunch of credible people, dead and alive. He said, how much would you be willing to pay to come to dinner? And everybody's throwing out numbers. And he said, well, I have all of their books. It's the same thing. Yet none of you are willing to sit down and read those books and have that sort of conversation with those people that you would pay tens of thousands of dollars to come meet and have mentor you for a night. And that was really interesting to me, because in my head, I sometimes build out like a round table of consultants and mentors that I only meet through personal development books. And when a situation arises, what would Jocko Willink tell me to do in this situation? How would he respond? Or what would David Goggins do, or whoever? So that really resonated with me. And then he also talked about, and I have some of these tattooed on me, funny enough now, but he talked about one term called eudaimonia, which is the good life. It was something that Aristotle talked about, and it was like the ultimate levels of health, wealth, love, and happiness. And I think a lot about those subjects and as pillars in my life. And I started to work on each one of those buckets individually. I did a 0 to 10. Where do I currently sit? What can I make improvement on? What books are the best in each one of these categories? And that was all Ty Lopez. So we both owe him a little bit.
Yeah, dude. I I would love, man, dude. I mean, just with him, his life, just the farm and city life. I mean, I'm not really a city guy, but I'm a hardcore country guy, and that I love his part of that part of his life. And growing up with the Amish, bro, there's probably 50 Amish families around where I grew up here in Indiana, and hardcore, no cars, no phones, no nothing, just buggies and freaking steel wheels, man. And so yeah, like one day I'm gonna meet him and be like, "Cause you're a stinking YouTube ad that everybody hated, I am here because of you, bro." And that's gonna be a cool day for sure.
Yeah, and you know what? There's an important lesson, whether it's Ty Lopez or it's Dan or it's anybody else who creates a lot of controversy or that people generally hate. Ty Lopez was the world's best internet marketer for years, maybe at least a full year. The world's number one. I mean, you don't have to like the guy to respect that and learn from him. And so I always defend somebody like a Ty Lopez from the masses whenever, people ask me about him all the time. I don't know Ty, but I'm like, listen, he transformed thousands of lives. What did you do? He didn't hurt anybody with his ads.
Exactly. 67 steps, all of his courses that he gave away for nothing and provided people. There's so many testimonials, so many people coming to his masterminds that were making millions a month. Kids that are young, in the 17 to 21 range that were taking what he, sold them with the internet marketing, when the social media marketing companies kind of got really big there a couple years ago. And yeah, dude, I mean, I've had people all the time saying he's a scam, and I'm like, what do you really know? Like, you saw some dude did a video on how Ty Lopez is a joke, and that's who you're going to believe. And I'm just like you, man. I stand up for Ty like he's my brother or something.
Yeah, sure. We both do. I love it.
But dude, so tell me about how you landed your first guest for your podcast. How did that story go down? Like, how did you get the lead, find the person, and how did that all work out?
I had developed a relationship with Evan Carmichael, who's primarily known for a pretty large entrepreneurship and motivational YouTube channel. He's got a few million subs over there. But Evan and I became friends because of his books through Instagram. And over the years, I traded a lot of messages with Evan, but we also did some Instagram lives from time to time, just, as friends. And at one point he said to me, like, hey, you're probably one of the most motivated people within your friend group. And so you probably don't have enough people in your face telling you to get uncomfortable often enough. Is that true? And I was like, yeah, I used to embrace discomfort intentionally all the time. That's where most of the initial growth happened. But then I sort of plateaued. And he said, I'd love to encourage you to get back into that space. And I thought about it for a while. And once you desensitize yourself to discomfort, as I'm sure you know, there's not that much that really gets your heart fluttering. I mean, for me, when I do public speaking, it still happens. But at the time, I was really confused as to what that might be. And then my colleague at the time, Ryan, I think we were having a discussion about it, and he said, if you were interviewing some of your favorite authors, do you think that would be uncomfortable having them challenge you intellectually, but also just, you're a fan of these people, they changed your life? And And at the time I said, yeah, I think so. So that's what I wanted to do. And I already had a number of large authors in the space following the Book Thinkers page. It was kind of in the height of that growth, 1,000 followers a week type thing. And so naturally, Evan was my first podcast episode. But then, within the first 10 episodes, I interviewed a lot of really amazing people. Like Grant Cardone was within the first 10, Russell Brunson, Jim Quick, all of those guys. And I also got to interview some of my favorite authors within the first 10 episodes. And once you have big names, you can leverage their credibility to go out there and get other big names. So that's what happened very quickly. And that's also what Evan taught me. Just an important note for anybody listening. Evan said to me, I don't know if it was on the podcast or privately, but he said, look at who follows me. And then when you go and you pitch that person, mention my name. And maybe my name moves the needle 1% in the right direction. Maybe it moves the needle 75% in the right direction, depending on my relationship with that person. So sort of snowball credibility, name drop. And then all of a sudden, once I got Grant within the first 10 episodes, it was like I could get anybody. Yeah. And from there, it just sort of snowballed.
How was it like interviewing Grant? Is he pretty easy to converse with back and forth?
I went into it after watching a video where Grant Cardone and Jordan Belfort sort of went at each other as the two sales gurus, and it created a bunch of controversy and sort of split their followers into two camps. So I thought Grant was going to be really aggressive, lead the conversation, and be hard to converse with. But I found him to be exactly the opposite through Zoom, at least. And so our first episode was virtual. I've done 2 with him. And he was very respectful. He paused after every question and paused after every response, and very easy to talk to. And then I did a second episode with him where we actually flew to Miami and recorded with him in person. And within 3 seconds, he took over the conversation and I never got it back. But I'll tell you what, Grant is just like Ty in the same respect that, or from the perspective that Grant helps a lot of people become super wealthy. And at the very bottom level, maybe his sales training and stuff that's being pushed by people on his team, and like the glitzy glam that you see on Instagram, which is also being run by other people, that's a positioning thing. But Grant's real customer is the accredited investor putting $250K or multiple millions of dollars into those syndication deals. And those people, when you have that much money to invest, you're not an idiot. Those are Grant's customers, and everything else is just for fun. And so I think Grant sometimes gets a bad rap on social media, and I think that he's way more like patient in person and kind, and you get his full attention. That's one thing I learned from Grant, is when you're in the room, all eyes are on you. Makes you feel like $1 million.
Interesting. That's cool. One of his book, The 10X Rule, really changed my life in a big way. I have a trifecta, and it's 10X Rule, Good to Great by Jim Collins, and then The One Thing by Gary Keller, I think, right?
Yep.
Those 3 books are kind of my fallback, and they have pushed my success. I mean, right now we've done, last year we did 15 pools. This year we're on schedule to do 30. And at this level is, we're competing with the big names in our area. They're doing about the same amount. There's actually one, they fell apart though. They were doing like 70 to 80 pools a year, which is crazy. But everything comes into play, with all the timing of the weather, with how your materials are all put in, the time it takes to dig and everything. So, one of the biggest reasons that I continually read and try to grow my knowledge base is to just be better at what I do. But Grant's book for sure is a killer, man. That 10X Rule is awesome.
Yeah, and so is Grant. And I also respect the fact that he's in his 60s and he feels as young as he does, and he's as sharp as he is, and he's not stopping anytime soon. Yeah. And Grant is somebody that I think genuinely cares. Like, he's just a good guy. He's got a great family life. I think that he paints a good picture for a lot of people. And yeah, he's a little in your face on social media, but it's what you get to do when you have multiple billions of dollars in syndication properties, right?
Pretty much, do what you want at that point. He he's a master marketer, man. I mean, he got a lot of flack for posting 100 times a day or whatever he does, throughout all the social medias. But his methods work. That 10x mentality is not to mess with for sure.
There's a story that one of my friends told me that he had listened to. So I haven't verified this, but Brad Lee, who's also a sales guy, I guess Brad and Grant were friends before Grant became Grant. And Grant was posting 100 times a day, and Brad Lee said something like, "Hey, dude, you got to cool down on these posts, man. Like, I'm gonna have to unfollow you." And Grant said something like, "Then unfollow me. You're not buying anything anyway."
I seen Brad's
So
video. Yeah.
yeah, so
That was,
I love that. I mean, listen, social media is for somebody like Grant is used to sell. And so get out of the way or buy.
yeah.
Sell or be sold, yeah.
Yep. And what you've done with your Book Thinkers page, that's done exactly that, with especially with your podcast. I mean, all the hard work you put into it is set you up to be able to get some top high end people at the top in their space. And so that's like it's a really good example of that.
Yeah, and let me tell everybody that's listening a book recommendation. So I really recommend a book called The Third Door. It's by Alex Banayan.
Yes.
And in that book, he has a metaphor right up front. He says, like, every opportunity is kind of, well, we'll use podcast guests. So like every podcast guest opportunity is like a nightclub. There's always three ways to get in. The first door is the general entry line, where the line wraps around the block and you got to pay a cover and you might not get in and you're going to have a long wait. The second door is the VIP door. You got to know somebody. And that's really tough to do when you're first starting out. You're not a VIP. You got to know somebody, or you pay your way in. Costs a lot of money. But he says there's always a third door. And what that means in this metaphor for the nightclub is, like, maybe you got to break in through the kitchen window and army crawl so that nobody sees you and you come in through the back of the club. But at the end of the day, you're in the club. It's just you got in through the third door. And so all of these hard to reach people, there is a third door. And like when I originally got Grant, it was because I filled out a speaking form on his website and I said I was willing to spend X amount of money. It might have been like 10 or 25 grand to have him do a virtual keynote, which is ridiculous. But I clicked that button to get somebody's attention so that I could get somebody on his team to phone me or email me. And that's what they did. And then we went back and forth and they said no a few times in a row. And I kept pitching. I'm like, I just want to provide value. I want a half an hour of his time on a Zoom call. And in exchange, I'll introduce him to this massive audience of nonfiction book readers who will buy his book. And by the way, Grant can pitch anything he wants on the show. I just need a half an hour of his time. And eventually they said yes. And to me, that was the third door. I filled out a speaking form on his website, And then this is a real third door one for you. At the end of the call, Grant is about to sign off, but I'm still recording. And I said, "Hey, Grant, I'm going to be in Miami soon. You want to do an in-person one?" He's like, yeah, sure, buddy, whatever. And so I had that recording. I didn't post that as part of the podcast, but I had it and I sent it to his team. And I said, "Hey, I'm going to be in Miami in November. Any dates work for Grant?" They're like, "Yeah, this date works." So I booked my tickets. I wasn't even going to be in Miami. And we went to Miami and we filmed an episode with Grant. We walked in the front door and they, had my name and, "Oh, nice to meet you." And the assistants came out and brought us through like 100 people on cubicles doing sales stuff and brought us into the back room and we got the VIP treatment. And it's like, it wouldn't have happened if I never clicked that button on the website originally. And then kind of like, at the end, "Hey, great, you want to do it in person?" So that's an example of the third door. And
Yeah.
I love the subject of getting in touch with hard people because I think it's so much easier than other people make it out to be.
Yeah. And speaking of which, those little, I don't know if you call them play on phrases. I'm not very articulate in that part of like dissecting language, but like saying things like that, kind of subliminally, I guess, is like a powerful tool to use. And then especially when you can, Grant, if he says it, from what I know of, and you've experienced it, he holds up to what he says. So he said it, then he'll do it. So you got him trapped.
Yeah.
That was cool. I was gonna say, what's the kind of turn around here? What's with the it's like a little animated doll type thing, book thinker's doll. Like, what was that idea behind that? I think it's so cool. And I was like, dude, I got to get me a mascot for my podcast brand.
So when Book Thinkers originally started, I had two sort of business partners that were helping me to develop this mobile application. And one of them, his name's Derek. He's a childhood friend of mine, and he's still a great friend of mine today. As a business entity, he still owns a part of Book Thinkers. And so he was just conversing online with this person that created I guess they're called plushies, like little dolls. And he paid to have it done and gave it to me. So I'm not sure how much it cost. I'm not sure where he got it, but he gave it to me. And what was weird is that for the first like 2 years that I had it, it never really made its way into any content. But then, it is a mascot. It's a differentiator. It's like a physical representation of my logo. And I love it now. Like, I think it's super cool, and I love to throw it in different videos.
Yeah, it's like all the animation that Gary Vaynerchuk does, with all the drawing and stuff, kind of like adds that fun kid element to all the seriousness, which
Yeah.
I love. And you can kind of play around with the idea and market it that way, which is super cool for sure. Go ahead. You're gonna say
Yeah, I
something.
was gonna say, and speaking of Gary V, I kind of have like a third door story with him too. So all the way back in like 2017, I mean, Gary was super popular. I guess not as popular as he is today, but I was following Gary's content, and I had read one of his books. And so we saw, one of my friends lived in Jersey City, right south of New York City, and that's kind of where Gary is. And Gary's team was hosting a wine tasting event, but like it was open to the public. And I didn't know if Gary was going to be there or not, but I just flew up and we went to the wine tasting together. And lo and behold, by the way, I was way underdressed. I was like the most underdressed person in the entire thing. There might have been like 300 people at this event, and I was the only one, probably not in a full suit, but I didn't even have a long sleeve shirt on. I had a short sleeve shirt. Like, it was bad. But we're just kind of moseying around and we're tasting wine, and I'm not even into wine. But eventually Gary walks in, and nobody ran over to him at first. I mean, I guess most of the people there were his employees. And I went over and I had a bunch of questions ready to go. And I said, Gary, huge fan. I'd love to take a picture. He's like, yeah, sure, buddy. So I went to take a picture, and then a line of like 20 or 30 people formed to take pictures with him. So I didn't get to ask him anything, but I did get to meet him and kind of observe him from a distance, like in the same room for a couple of hours, which was really cool.
Yeah. Is he just like he is on online, I'm assuming?
Yeah, he's really, really fast paced, moves around the room. When you get his attention, you get his attention, but it's pretty fleeting. And it was one of the rare days that he was in a full suit, which was funny. He was overdressed compared to me, and that never happens. He's always in a t-shirt.
Yeah. Yeah. The time you don't come with your suit on, he's there all dressed up to the T, which is never
Yeah, it was funny.
right. That's something that would happen to me for sure. Do you go to are you in any inner circle groups, or go to any events or whatnot, like GrowthCon or Thrive or?
No, I went to one event last year called Secret Knock, which was an amazing experience. It was out in San Diego, and it was hosted by a guy named Greg Reed. And I love in-person experiences like that, but they've never been my thing. I can see myself over, as time continues to develop, or as things continue to develop, I can see myself starting to go to those events more regularly though. What about you?
Dude, I love them when I can put the money to them. Like I went to Thrive, the last one with Cole Hatter, and Cole, you've heard of him?
Yeah, I know who he is. I haven't paid much attention, but I'm familiar with Thrive too.
Okay, cool. So I bought I bought their inner circle ticket, and that was super fun. Just got to hang out in the back. Actually, Jim Quick was there. Cody Sperber, the clever investor. Um, who else came? I know Andy Frisella showed up at the end. Brad Lee was there, all hanging
It's
out.
funny. I'm wearing a 75 hard shirt right now. Shout
Yeah,
out Andy Frisella.
yeah, he's an animal. So that was fun, man. And just like I didn't have, I know, like when I was at Grant's event, I know it's kind of everyone's networking and whatnot, but this was like one of the only times I went, and I was just getting to know people. I had nothing to pitch, just kind of building relationships with people, and I really enjoyed it. Just getting to talk about a guy who owns his own. His name's Jeff, and he owns his own Bitcoin mining operation. Like he's got a massive bunch of servers and everything that mines cryptocurrencies. He's got like his blockchain thing, and apparently he's a big deal. And then talking to Cody, about some random, he wants to do some sex Airbnbs. And so at lunch, and which Cody Sperber, by the way, is like the realest dude you've ever met. Which I absolutely love him. His chemistry with him and Cole, since they've partnered up, dude, it's like the coolest thing ever, because they're always roasting each other and always just kicking it back and forth. And it was just an awesome environment. But I'd love to go to one with you, because you seem to be like a super cool dude. And from what the last 40 minutes, we kind of have a lot of the same backstory almost. And that'd be awesome to kind of just hang out and do some stuff.
Yeah, no, I'll tell you what. Whenever I meet somebody like you, I have this, I don't even know what it's called. It's called Young Professionals or something on my computer, but it's a Google sheet where I write down really motivated, articulate, smart young people, because it's the average person these days is not entrepreneurial, despite what we see on social media. They're working a job that they hate. They're playing video games and watching Netflix all day and all night. And it's like, whenever I meet somebody like you, I think to myself, man, one day, whether it's 2023, 2024, I want to put together a conference where I put all of these people on stage, the authors that I'm connected to. And I'd love the audience to be full of the people that I've met over the years that I think are a good fit. And then I'd love, like a lot of, I think about this sometimes too, like a lot of the names that we've talked about today, they sort of grew up together over the last like 10 or 15 years. And I think, okay, their time is going to come when they're no longer relevant. Who's going to step in? Who's going to fill that void? And it's probably going to be a group of people that came up together, and because all those guys like the Lewis Howes and Jesse Itzlers and Jim Quicks, like they're on each other's shows, they're promoting each other's books, they're promoting each other's courses, they're going and speaking at each other's events. It's like, I want to create something like that. Yeah, so I'd love to go to one with you too. And maybe you can come to mine or help me with it.
Dude, no, I'm totally down. That's something I miss growing up. When David Meltzer, the dude went to college or high school with like the most powerful people on the planet. And I was homeschooled. There's 11 kids in my family, 11 of us, living in Indiana, Baptist, homeschooled. So although we had, homeschool groups and whatnot, but I never had that connection group at all. I didn't go to college, didn't go to, regular high school, public school, or a Christian school. And so I've been wanting something like that and for a long time. And I mean, just building our pool company, me and my brother, because we're partners, we've had to build everything from scratch in the last couple of years. My dad did construction for so long, but he never handed us down any like type of contact base like a lot of these companies out here. And so we kind of started from scratch. So something like that, I would be so down for that. Would be absolutely incredible.
Yeah. And, I think about the logistics of organizing something like that are not that crazy. I mean, you pick a venue. Normally the venue, from my limited understanding, probably has an event staff that knows how to handle the screens and the lights and that kind of stuff. And you just buy a package and they assist you with it. And then you just need to put people on stage, and that's not an issue. Like I have so many friends in the space now that I think would love to come and, at this Greg Reed event that I went to last year, what Greg is amazing at is hosting events. I mean, this event was amazing, and there were a lot of big named authors there. And after the event, Greg had purchased like hundreds of copies of each of their books, and then they were just sitting there signing them, taking photos. And it's like, I want to create that same thing, a 1 or 2 day event, maybe even put it in like a tropical location where people feel like they can experience something even further outside of their comfort zone, something like a new country, like maybe it's in Cancun or something, because that's right over the border, or like very close in terms of flights. Just increases the novelty aspect of it, gets people to think like, wow, this is a very unique experience. And put Grant on stage or whoever. Grant might be out of my budget, but
Yeah, he's high up there.
yeah.
I wonder if you think it'd just be go like a straight event, or kind of start with a inner circle group and build a, because you've already got, like, I know you've got a big community base, a lot more than I have for sure. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know. What do you think would be better? Just starting something small, or kind of just like, hey, go to the big event? Because I mean, honestly, either way, you could totally just do a big push and do something big, like a couple hundred people.
Yeah, I tend to think big and then, get hit with reality. And I think the reality is it would probably be smarter to start with something smaller. And I've I've actually had my own little internal accountability group. It's less than a handful of people, and we've been meeting weekly for years. And we've talked in that group about, expanding it to maybe 20 people. Have you heard of the group Tiger 21 before?
No.
Tiger 21 is this, from my understanding, limited understanding, is this ultra exclusive group of high net worth individuals, mostly entrepreneurs, who take turns on like a weekly or monthly basis, basically doing what they call a portfolio defense, where they get up in front of the group and everything in full transparency, A to Z, that their money is invested in, because they're all super wealthy. The minimum barrier to entry might be like 25 million or 50 million or 100 million or something. And yeah, they all get up in front of the room and they're like, here's my net worth, here's where it's all invested, here's the average returns that I've been getting. And I would love to do that with a group of people. I mean, if you have 20 smart minds working on improving your financial portfolio, it's going to happen a lot faster than if it's just you, because you're insecure to share it with other people. And what other areas of our lives can we apply that mindset to? Health and entrepreneurship and happiness, all of it.
Yeah, for sure. That that would be cool, because probably in the next like 2 years, me and my brother we're actually trying to find land right now and build an apartment complex, because we started building custom homes was kind of our first thing, and then we kind of went into in-ground pools, and building apartments isn't that hard, but finding land around here in a good spot is expensive. But that's our ultimate goal. One from our pool, our net profits from our pool company, and putting into real estate investments. So having an accountability group like that would be cool. For sure. That's something.
Yeah.
That'd be sweet, dude.
I just listened to Joe Rogan interview Mr. Beast, who's a YouTuber.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not really on YouTube that much. Did you watch that episode?
No, but I know who Mr. Beast is. I've seen him from day one.
That's awesome. Yeah, he's incredibly intelligent. I didn't realize that he was doing like over $100 million a year in YouTube ad revenue. But he was talking with Joe about, in the early days, he had a group of friends and they all got together under 20,000 subscribers each. And there were like 4 or 5 of them. And he said they would just hang out on Skype for 10 hours a day, going super deep into everything related to YouTube, from thumbnail to different design and hooks and keywords and all of that, content ideas. And they did that for years. And Mr. Beast's point was that what took that group like 3 or 4 years to do together would have taken an individual 5 times longer, because they were all working in the same direction. They kind of create, like Elena Cardone says this, two Clydesdales, each pulling 8,000 pounds individually, together can pull like 30,000 pounds. So it creates additional force when you're working with other people in the right direction. And yeah, anyway, well, I'll stay in touch with you on that, because it's the in-person experience. There's nothing that beats that.
No, dude, and COVID fudged it up. And yeah, that's getting to know people in real time, how they move. Just like I seen your interview with Vanessa Van Edwards.
Mm-hmm.
The cues of people, that episode was, and her book is completely amazing. I've fallen in love with her whole thing, because it's like, what makes people, the things that I have known for most of my life, what kind of the vibe off people that I can't really place, like how would you articulate that in words? And she does a very good job of that. But yeah, that realness, getting to know people, how they stand, how they kind of look, how they communicate with you. And it's a real thing for sure.
Yeah, it is. I agree. COVID messed it all up. That's all right. It's going away.
Yeah,
now,
no,
which is
scared,
great.
man. Ukraine's up on the block next.
Yeah.
But hey, man, it's been up toward the hour. I know you got stuff to do, so I want to be respectful of your time. And but I really appreciate the call. Love getting to meet you and kind of talk about your brand. And I promote your stuff, wherever I go, because I love your page, love what you're doing, and have a lot of respect for it. And hopefully we can do something together, dude. That'd be super cool. And actually, I don't know if you said you made a spreadsheet of all the articulate, smart entrepreneurs that are young. And I don't know if I made that list, but if I did, I don't know if that was a mistake on your part or what, but
no, man, it wasn't. I respect what you're doing a lot too. And I mean, you'd be shocked. Like what percentage, how old are you, by the way?
23.
What percentage of people your age are running a business and reading personal development books and attending growth conferences? I mean, seriously, like what percentage, what fraction of 1%? Is it 1 out of 1,000 people? Is it 1 out of 10,000 people? Like, you're in rare air, man, and doing it at your age, like, good for you. And I'm old now. I'm 28. I'm getting up there.
Come on, man.
If only I didn't waste 4 years at college, maybe I'd be in your chair.
Yeah, I mean, see, the funny thing is, I feel like I've wasted time because I've watched some of Tai Lopez's guys that come up, but then again, I think I'm in the right spot at the right time, and I got to focus on what I'm doing. But that's one of the reasons I didn't go to college, was like, I want to make money, and college has never been the spot where you go to make money. And so I stuck with what I was doing. It all kind of went down in 2019 when my dad passed away, when he kind of handed us a really, like, the was it the E-Myth? The kind
Gerber,
of that kind of entrepreneur, that kind of business owner was my dad, just super old school. And so he didn't really hand us much. And so, that kind of started the journey. So 2 years later, 2.5 years later, we're moving along. But I just want to make money and help people who I can. And then when I make a lot of money, then I can even help more people. But I got to help myself first. And then I can do what I want to do.
I love that story. I think the Michael Gerber stuff, I've interviewed Michael Gerber before. He's an amazing guy. And yeah, you're right. That type of entrepreneurship, I don't know. We could go on forever, man. I love these subjects, but I appreciate you respecting my time, and we'll do another one of these whenever you're ready, like in a couple of months or something like that.
Yeah, dude. Of course. Absolutely. And I'll let you get back to the beach and with the girlfriend. So thanks again, Nicholas. Nick or Nicholas, which one you prefer?
I've got to fix that. I don't prefer either one of them. So
me neither. I don't care. People call me Jonathan.
Jonathan.
I'm like, dude, just do whatever, man. I don't care. I've been called moron and idiot, so I'm good either way.
I gotta just go by book thinkers or something like that.
Yeah,
Or like something shorter.
yeah.
Yeah.
Just
Well,
call.
oh, go ahead.
No, no, dude. You go ahead.
I was just gonna say, well, I appreciate your time, and yeah, my girlfriend and I are gonna go run over and grab some dinner before the sun goes down over here. So yeah, you
Cool.
have a good rest of your evening, and we'll touch base soon.
You too, brother. Thank you very much.